Okay, so now that we know the parts of the respiratory system, let's discuss how breathing actually works. First, remember the muscles of respiration that we've gone over. The diaphragm, the thin muscle that forms the floor of our chest cavity, and intercostal muscles. When we inhale oxygen, our diaphragm contracts, which means that it moves down. Our intercostal muscles also contract, which causes our chest cavity to expand. The larger chest cavity causes air to rush in. This is because the larger chest cavity lowers the pressure in our chest cavity below that of the outside air pressure. Air then wants to flow through our airways from high pressure, being outside, to low pressure in our chest cavity, and so inflates our lungs with oxygen. When you exhale, sort of the opposite happens. The diaphragm and intercostal muscles relax, returning to their original shape. So the diaphragm moves up, the intercostal muscles move inward, and make the chest cavity smaller. What this does is it increases the pressure above that of the outside air, and we see air flow from the lungs through the airways to the outside air. This cycle is then repeated with every breath. So here is just a picture of how the respiratory system functions with every breath. So as we explained in the previous slide, our diaphragm and rib muscles contract, the diaphragm moves down, the intercostal muscles of the rib expand our chest, air flows in from high to low pressure, and then when we're exhaling on the right side here, we relax our diaphragm, that moves it up, the rib cage gets smaller as the rib muscles relax, and this causes air to be pushed out from high pressure in the chest cavity now to low pressure of the outside air. Now we're going to talk specifically about the alveoli. Now, if you remember from when we were going through the figure that you guys need to label for Wednesday's quiz, the alveoli weren't specifically pictured, but I said that they were very tiny cup-like structures that are important because this is where gas exchange actually takes place. These alveoli are surrounded by capillaries, which is a very important vessel in our circulatory system, if we remember. There are over 150 million of these tiny alveoli in a healthy lung, so we have a ton of these things. We have so many, which allows to give lots of surface area for gas exchange to occur because oxygen is so important to us. You can see from our slide that the efficiency of gas exchange in the lungs. You might be surprised that the air we inhale from the outside air that we inhale is only composed of about 21% oxygen, and the air we exhale is still about 15% oxygen, just containing much more carbon dioxide. Here's a closer look at gas exchange. We can see our trachea or windpipe carrying air down to the left and right bronchus. The bronchus splits into the smaller bronchioles, if we remember. And at the tips of the bronchioles, we see gas exchange occurring at the tiny cup-like structures called alveoli. The alveoli are extremely thin and allow CO2 that we can see here to pass to the alveoli and O2 to flow into the red blood cells of our circulatory system. This blood then goes back to the heart, specifically the left atrium of the heart, then from the left atrium to the left ventricle, and then pumped to the rest of the body through the major artery, the aorta. Now, quick question for you. Do you actually have to think about breathing? Think about this. So as you've been watching this short lecture, have you been thinking about actively making a breath? And how about the next question? Can you actually stop yourself from breathing? Now, the answer to both of these questions is actually no. And so you might be thinking, I can absolutely stop myself from breathing. And for a short amount of time, you're absolutely correct. But once your brain gets so oxygen deprived that you lose consciousness and pass out, your body will automatically start breathing again. And so while you can decide to stop breathing for a limited time, your body will reset and make you start breathing. So this is because breathing is actually controlled by your what's called autonomic nervous system. And so your autonomic nervous system is a portion of the brain that actually handles a lot of the things that we don't think about. So for example, we talked about the autonomic nervous system in relation to the beating of the heart. And so we don't have to think about our heart actually beating because it's handled by the autonomic nervous system. Same thing to do with our respiration and breathing. And here we're returning to our heart diagram that we got very comfortable with for last quiz. And this is just to remind you the oxygen-rich and oxygen-poor blood as it flows through the heart. And the oxygen-poor blood here is going to be colored in blue. Our oxygen-rich blood is going to be colored in red. And so you remember the two major veins entering the heart into the right atrium. And so the inferior down here and superior vena cava that flows into the right atrium. It's pumped to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, it's pumped through the pulmonary arteries to the left and right lungs, where it then goes, the blood picks up oxygen through the alveoli. It then returns through the pulmonary veins, now carrying oxygen-rich blood to our left atrium, pumped down to the left ventricle, and then pumped through the aorta to the rest of the body. And with that, thank you very much for listening to our lecture on the respiratory system. Just some reminders for this class coming up on Wednesday. I want you to finish the e-cigarette discussion, so that's available until that's the 19th on Wednesday at midnight. Turn in your Word document of your research topic, your preliminary research, so just general research using Google, and some possible research questions that'll form the basis for your research paper. We do have a quiz on the respiratory system right when we get into class on Wednesday. Remember, the format of our class on Wednesday is going to be at the start, we'll have some time to finish the lab activity that we started last Wednesday related to heart rate, respiration, and so forth. And we'll then play a game of Kahoot that's designed to help us review for our midterm. That is not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. Thanks, guys, and see you guys Wednesday night.